Mhm. Okay, great. We're live, and I'm Bob Weathers here at Your Vitality Project. And our guest tonight, as we regularly join on most Friday nights, is my dear friend Angela MacLeod.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, Angela.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. Thank you. Angela and I were just speaking. It's been an interesting kind of grab bag of different topics that have arisen this week. We talked about changing old patterns on Wednesday night, and tonight our topic is how to build self-esteem. I called it how to build real self-esteem, and we can talk more about that in a moment or not. I'm just interested in things that we can do that help us to develop a foundation of feeling good about ourselves, of feeling worthy. We've talked so much about resilience, but we haven't talked so much about how self-esteem can aid in our being able to bounce back from adversity, from challenges. And so I'd love to invite your reflections, Angela, and just dialogue for a few minutes around this topic of so-called real self-esteem.
Yeah, that's a great topic. I think the first thing that comes to my mind around self-esteem is that I feel good about myself when I'm doing something that I feel in integrity with myself. But I reflected on this more through the day, and I realized that the times that I actually feel more like it's more real, my self-esteem is more real when I've been challenged, when something has challenged me, or there's something that I want to do that I haven't been able to do, or that I feel stuck around, or I procrastinate around, and I somehow gather the resources that I need within myself, and I do it, and I feel like I've accomplished something. So there's something about there's things that I do that don't take a lot of effort, and they're positive, good things, and yet those don't have as much of an impact maybe as when I've had to grow a little bit to kind of find my my sense of self-worth. So I've had so many different thoughts about this today. It's been a very interesting topic. One of the big things also is when I have been able to go to people that I have harmed and made amends. That often has been one of the strongest things that have given me a sense of self-esteem. So it's like healing with another person, or repairing things that I've done that went against my own values. So I almost feel like those have had the most power, in a sense, in terms of restoring my self-esteem. So that's sort of one end of the spectrum. And then I also thought about sort of the second part of your post about breathing into the accomplishment. And I love that. That's really wonderful, and it really matches some of the learning about the nervous system, that one of the ways that we can anchor positive experiences in our nervous system, that's part of rewiring our nervous system toward the more positive, is by savoring and celebrating, by just breathing into the things that are positive that we've done. So if I've just accomplished something important to me and it took a lot of work, there's a part of me that could just go on, just like rush on to the next thing, because there's a mind that I sometimes have this mindset of, well, there's 20 million other things on the list, get going, keep working on it. But to pause and to celebrate and to savor the accomplishment is part of what builds self-esteem, or it builds the sense of my own self-worth, I guess. So that's one of the other things that came up for me.
I like very much. It's a word that you've introduced me to with you have so much appreciation for this idea of savoring
Mhm.
experiences,
Mhm.
savoring beauty, and in this case, savoring. Yeah, I'm thoughtful about what you said about being able to savor repair in relationships, by making amends, and to really take that in and have that build something. Yeah, I found myself. I found myself. I continued to think about it as you kept talking. So I may have missed pieces of what you said, but I want you to know that really landed for me. Is
Mhm.
that it's so counterintuitive? Is that the idea? I was doing some reflecting earlier today on what goes into making an apology really helpful, really useful, really
Mhm.
meaningful. And I thought of different components of that. But as I was thinking about it, I also thought about how can apologies go wrong? And I thought of 4 different examples of like apologies that just kind of backfire. I won't go into that right now because I think it would take us off course, but it's enough to say that I think a lot of us will, how do I put this? I think the idea of making myself vulnerable and coming to you and apologizing, to frame that as something that actually builds self-esteem, can be counterintuitive for any of us that were raised thinking that to admit that we've done wrong is somehow to be bad or defective or worthy of shame. And
Uh-huh.
so I really like how you've reclaimed something that's very difficult for many individuals and actually framed it in terms of this could actually be something that builds positive esteem. And then you began talking about actually savoring that as a challenge. You're talking about challenge. It's really challenging for most of us to do
Yeah.
that, to make
Yeah.
amends. And the idea that I could fold that into something that actually builds psychological strength and good feeling inside. I really like that.
Great. Yeah. Another element to this for me is that in the more recent years in my life, I have a few close people in my life with whom, I share, details about how I'm doing and what's going on. And one of the things I've noticed about some of my friends is that they listen to me and they listen really deeply, and they often will celebrate, they'll reflect back. Wow, I'm amazed that you did that. That was brilliant. I mean, they're telling me I'm brilliant, and it doesn't go into an egotistical thing. It doesn't like, you know, um, false pride or anything like that. It goes more into that sense of celebration. I feel they're celebrating, a success or a choice that I made that really turned out well. And then the other part of that is it feels so good that I do it. I want to do that with the
Yeah,
people I'm close to.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
it's nice to feel from the other side how it can become a relational thing that we can boost each other's self-esteem. And I want to be careful with that because I don't want to go to somebody who just feels like, oh, I'm such an awful person, and then I go in there and say, no, you're not. You're really great.
Yeah.
It's not like I want to sort of fix them, but it's when there is those moments of when somebody shares something that they've done or that they've accomplished, that I just join with them and celebrate and reflect it back.
Yeah.
And I just think, why not? Like, why not give that kind of nourishment to each other?
Yeah. 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 I really like that. I was reflecting as I was listening to you just now that you and I have known each other over several years now, and it's such a wonderful quality of richness and nourishment for me in our relationship is that it's easy for me to find things to praise you for, to compliment you for, to support you. It's very easy for me to do that with you. And I also feel like that you reciprocate fully and then some. I feel like you've always been so thoughtful and holding me in high regard. And it's mutual. It's mutual. It's such a such a powerful form of nourishment in a relationship. So I really appreciate you situating this conversation in the relational.
Yeah.
I also want to go back. I think because it's the end of the week in some ways, the end of the day, I'm processing all you're saying, but I'm just kind of on the slow train, I think.
That's okay.
I was thinking about earlier when you were talking about that you feel particularly good about when you encounter a challenge and that you are able to move through it with some success. And I was thinking about how psychology says that frustration, they call it a curvilinear relationship to frustration, and it's like a bell-shaped curve like this.
Yeah.
See if I can draw it inside the frame there. Bell-shaped curve. And that if there's too little frustration in our lives, it makes our lives kind of vapid and maybe even boring. There's just no challenge. And then if there's too much frustration, well, obviously that's stressful, but it's like finding the sweet spot. And I was thinking of it as you were talking, an image came to me, and it's a silly image, but it's a metaphor for this. I've played some version of electronic chess for about 40 years now. When they first came out, these little games that they had little figures, and it was all high tech. This is 40 years ago, and it's evolved over the years where I played on computer, and I guess I play a few games a month. I don't know. There's been years I've gone by where I haven't played it all. So, and I just play with myself. I haven't played somebody a game of chess in as long as I can remember. It's probably been most of 40 years since I played an actual chess game with someone else. And because of the way that computers are set up now, I have a chess game on my tablet, and you can grade yourself. You can play because computers are so good. You can set it to a level that it'll beat chess masters in the world. I mean, it's like they can, IBM and other companies have definitely been able to beat the grandmaster champions. Well, that's not my level. I'm somewhere between beginner and intermediate. I'll let somebody else decide that. But I found over the years kind of a sweet spot for me with chess is that if I push it too far, and it's graded on levels of like 0 to 100. And if I push it too far, let's say I decided I'm going to be at 50, that would be a joke for me because I'd have my butt handed to me, basically. It stops being fun for me. And if it's what I'm doing for recreation at the end of the day, just to kind of relax and shift gears, and I can enjoy it, it's got to be in the sweet spot. It can't be too easy, because if you can set it at a level where the computer just basically rolls over and plays dead. Well, that's not going to be satisfying. I want a little bit of something, but I don't want it to be so hard that I'm deliberating for hours over each move and still lose. So it's been an interesting process for me to discover I really enjoy the challenge of it, but it has to be the right level of challenge. So that I was listening to you talk about it, and for some reason the chess thing came in my mind. It might well apply to any challenge in our lives, and I think you know what I mean. You and I both have bigger challenges in our life than a chess game, and sometimes we're just beset by it. It's just too much, and it's hard to have a feeling of. In fact, for me, when I'm in over my head, oftentimes I'll feel really bad about myself. It's easy for me to go down a sinkhole of making attributions about me as a person, which I don't feel like are helpful, but it'll pull for that. But if there's the right level of challenge, it really is satisfying. There's actually a term for it given in psychology. It's referred to as optimal frustration. If you can find the optimal level of frustration, not too little and not too much.
Yeah.
And that is the way that we build self-esteem, is by competence, by being effective in the face, just as you put it, of optimal frustration.
Yeah. Well, yeah. This idea of feeling good about myself, I realize as I'm listening to you, and also what I said earlier, is that that it's not so much about an ego thing. It's not like I want to feel good about myself just because I don't even know exactly where I'm going with that, but that's why I kind of brought it back to when I do something and I accomplish something, or I push an edge a little bit, and found that I could handle it, or I made a progress. I had some growth. And so I think that I guess I believe that that is sort of a natural need. That's a human need to feel challenged, to feel rise to the occasion, and then to succeed. And then also sometimes there's failures. Oh, I didn't do it. I didn't manage. I didn't make it. And so it's all in the mix. So, that was the thing I was thinking earlier too, is that my feeling good about myself or my self-esteem isn't dependent only on if I succeed at something. And so that I would want to be careful about, to tie it only to succeeding. And in fact, I guess I want to also be there for myself when I don't succeed. I want to be equally as self-compassionate when I don't succeed at something. And not turn that on myself like, oh, I'm worthless now. I don't want my worth to only be tied to what I can produce or achieve. So it's a kind of an interesting mixture there. Yeah.
I really appreciate you naming this nuance. I'm not even sure it's a nuance. It's just a really important vein of this whole conversation. It occurs to me, and you and I have talked about this personally, is that in the mornings when I have my quiet time, one of the things that's become one of the highlights, it's one of the most enjoyable parts that, as I've shared with you, it actually will tickle me. Sometimes I'll find myself smiling or giggling as I'm reviewing this, as I'm swimming in the pool in the mornings, is looking at ways that I cut myself a break. And one of the things that comes up a lot for me is exactly what I think you're talking about. I really appreciate you catching this, Angela, is that it's when I can be kind to myself when I didn't meet a goal. It's become a daily thing. So I say that I have daily experiences of not reaching my goals. But the wonder of it is that's not new. The wonder of it is that I don't ignore it. I actually focus in on it, and I can actually find grace from within. I'm just so grateful for that. There's a way, and I've developed a bit of a sense of humor about it inside. It's like, I haven't thought of it. I don't use this language, but it'd be like, let's see how you failed yesterday, Bob. It's not so much even thinking of it as a failure. It's just, that wasn't going to work for me. I didn't have the energy for that, or I got too tired, or I got distracted. And so I guess you could say literally it's a failure. It's about being human and not reaching a goal. And any given day, I have certain expectations or goals, and some portion of those don't get met. So I just review those, and it's what I'm interested in is not whether I reached the goal or not. It's how did I manage not reaching the goal? That's the part that's really of interest. And you're putting your finger right on that right now. I think brilliantly. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. I think a lot of us might have a tendency towards that perfectionism, so if I didn't do it perfectly, then I'm nothing, or I screwed up completely. And that's a rabbit hole, to go down to.
Yeah. I wrote a poem this morning, and I want to share it with you just because it's relevant, and I hope it lands okay. You know what? It's not a poem, and it actually was in my journaling. That's well, here's my latest mistake. I wrote a poem this morning, but it wasn't the poem. It was in my journaling, and I won't go to it right now. It'll take too long, and it's not so important. Other than what I was looking at, I can't believe I didn't write this as a poem because it came out more poetically. It was in my journaling. What I was looking at is what really matters, and what I was writing, and I was playing with words this morning, which is pretty extraordinary because I'm just waking up. But it's like, I'm going to look it up. Give me just a second. I'm going to look it up. Because I'm not going to do it justice. Give me just a second. It'll come right up here. Let's see. Okay. Thanks for your patience.
Sure.
Now I do want to share it. I think I'm destined to deal with this as a failure. I think it's so funny. Now I can't find it. So God knows I could have written it in a margin of a book. I thought I have these various places I journal. And we'll just have to let that go. What I was getting at, I'm sorry for the distraction there.
That's okay.
Was that I was getting at this thing that you and I have talked about in different ways, is that the one thing that matters is not a thing. In fact, my wish is to be, I was playing with this idea of being no thing, playing with nothing and no thing, and I can't find where I wrote that note now. But the idea was that we're not things. We're not things. I'm not a thing. And when at least for me, Angela, when I've practiced this, and I've done a lot in my life, practice is too kind. When I've been enslaved by perfectionism, and I've spent a good part of my life really, really under its reign. It treats me like a thing. I'm like a machine or a mechanism that has to be perfect, like a machine. It's predictable. Just oil it and it does what it does. And that was what I was playing with this morning. And I'll find it and I'll send it to you later. But this idea that the releasement is realizing that we're not a thing. We're no thing. We're no thing. So that's the most important thing. Is nothing. That's what I was playing with. And God knows, maybe I dreamt it at this point. I can't seem to find it. I don't know where I wrote it down.
Well, wait, we can come back to it another time. Then.
Yeah. Well, you get the flavor of it, and it comes from what we're talking about, whether it be perfectionism or. So I really appreciate so-called failure. I hate to even call it failure.
Yeah.
It's like Eckhart Tolle talks about, if you make a mistake, and he puts it in italics, if I make a mistake and I learn from it, is it still a mistake? If I fail and I learn from it or grow from it, the way that we're talking about it, I don't even feel comfortable calling it a failure, because that implies something different at least in our American English, I think. Failure has a quality that's not really what we're talking about.
Yeah. I kind of see part of what we're talking about here is, we've talked about that default mode, the negativity.
Yes.
And so especially, in recovery and early recovery, I myself, and I think it's maybe common for a lot of people to not be in touch with self-esteem. And so to be able to gently move towards finding a natural self-esteem, through our choices and our actions over time. And I thought, well, if I were to just suggest to somebody who is wanting to know how to build this in more into their life, I would just say, take little steps and notice in the day to day, when something small went well, when a choice I made worked out, when a choice I made didn't work, but I learned from it. And then actually pause and breathe in, like, and just that long, even 5 seconds or 10 seconds, breathing in some spaciousness around it. Because we could talk about this and be really intellectual and cognitive and tick off a lot of interesting points, but and people can listen to this, and I can listen to it, and I can go, yes, this all sounds right, and etc. But it's what we weave into our life, every day, along the way, that makes that deeper change in the nervous system, in our ability to savor, and celebrate. So, and especially, gosh, if you haven't done this much in your life, see what it feels like to genuinely, when you notice somebody that you're close to done something wonderful or small, just even a small thing, and just go, woohoo, thank you, that was beautiful. Or just be playful with it, and just let them know that you noticed. And it will not only will it probably feel good to them, but it'll feel good to you or to myself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
all works to rewire and rebuild,
Mhm.
our self-esteem.
Mhm. That's good. That's good. Something I appreciate about you, Angela, and always have, is that when we're talking and I share something with you, you'll pause and oftentimes we'll say thank you. And it's very much a sense of being received. I'm so grateful for that. It's another very simple thing, but it's very rare, and it
Mm,
stands out very much for me in relationship to you. So it could be simple as an
yeah,
acknowledgement of
yeah.
thank you. I just really, really like what you're talking about. We're going to wrap up in just a second, but what I'd like to underscore is something that you're emphasizing here, is that this is more than cognitive assent. You and I both nodded our heads at
Mm.
probably infinite numbers of lectures and inspirational talks, or at least I have. And for me, it's really working this out in the smithy of our lives. It's like
Yeah.
it's me swimming in the pool every morning and doing an inventory on yesterday's so-called failures. It's
Uh-huh.
you practicing thank you or yippee, and getting to where that's habitual. I like what my friend Jim says about this. Jim Finley, he says we want to habituate a
Yeah.
certain kind of consciousness. It's not
Yeah.
it's not enough to just have it touch us every once in a while. What would it be like to live in this as our habitual frame of reference? That's
Yeah.
very desirable to me.
Beautiful. Nice ending.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, as always. So
Yeah.
rich.
Talk.
Wow. I love where we go, and it's always surprising. Thank you. I
Yeah.
wish you a good evening and a good
Uh-huh.
weekend, dear Angela. Okay, and everybody, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Angela and I'll be back, God willing, next Friday night. Have a wonderful weekend, Angela, and everybody
Yeah.
else as well. Take care. Good night,
Bye.
everybody. Bye bye.